Hello everyone, happy Wednesday. How is everyone doing? Do you know what, I'm looking out my window today and it is snowing. It's snowing in Brighton, which is unusual. It's been snowing heavily for like 2 hours. So this is why there's a lot of artificial light going on, because when I tell you my room is grey, my room is grey. Welcome to our last 2023 reading wrap up. I'm aware that it is 2024 when I'm recording this, but this is December's reading wrap up, so this is the final reading review month of 2023. It's quite monumental that I've managed to get through a year of book reviews. I'm just like surprised at my own consistency, even if they have been a bit late every now and then. Now, I'm pretty sure that there will be a 2023 reading wrapped from me. I don't know when that's coming quite yet, but to summarise, I've read 79 books in the year of 2023. I read 7 in December. Some of you may know my original target was 100, so 79, 21 off. I don't think that's that bad. I had some really low reading months, and reading 100 books when you're trying to get 2 YouTube uploads a week, that is tricky, you know. Thank you to everyone that's watched all my book reviews this year. I can't believe we did it. We've done a whole year. I will be carrying on reviews into 2024, but I'm not going to set a reading target, I don't think. I'm just going to be reviewing. I'm tempted to remove the star ratings, but I haven't decided yet. So for now, we're going to keep them on. I keep getting really distracted by the beautiful snow outside. It's like hypnotising me. When I have months where I read like 5+ books, it's really hard for me to review. I feel like I can never remember them. I do write down my thoughts as I finish them, because I've learned that that's the best way to actually give a decent review. But yeah, I just find it really difficult. So the first book I read in December was a Kindle Unlimited book, and it was The Finish Line by Kate Stewart. This is the 3rd book in the Ravenhood series, and for me, it's only getting 1 star today. Brief synopsis, as always. Tobias and Cecilia reunite after all these years, and they have their final shot at making things work, at trusting each other again, at reconciling. This is just a pre-warning as well that today I'm reviewing a fair amount of books that are like further on or the last books in series, so they're not going to be spoiler free. Feel free to move along, skip ahead. I don't want to ruin these books for you. This book was honestly so bad and so unenjoyable. I'm really disappointed that I started my month off with this book, because you know when afterwards you spend like 10 days on a book because it's so bad and you're just like, oh well, what now? I should have DNF'd this book. To be honest, we all need to learn when to DNF in 2024, because I just need to stop persevering with books. But I was so emotionally invested in the series of events in books 1 and 2 that I felt like I owed it to myself to finish this book. So it's mainly backstory about Tobias's life, which gives us a bit of context about why he is the way he is, how he got into this line of business, what leads him to make some of the decisions that he makes today, which in theory should have been good, and it was kind of the only solid element of the book, I thought, but I wasn't hooked on that bit. I was being a bit like bored by the past events. I wanted to bring it back to present day. The whole book was a bit of a non-story. Nothing really happened until maybe like the last quarter, which I don't really know how I felt about it. I was just like so done by that point. It was just repeatedly them arguing, fucking, arguing, fucking, arguing, fucking. And I get that the whole plot is about them finding their way back to each other, learning how to trust each other again, and kind of learning how to be as a couple, with her like in the loop and informed, and him relinquishing that trust and that access to her. But it just didn't hit. It should have been half the length it was, and a little novella. And I'm not gonna lie, she should have ended up with Dom or Sean. I would have preferred that. She should have ended up with Dom or Sean. I was wondering if it was just me, because when I read the reviews for this book, so many of the reviews are 5-star, and obviously it's subjective. That's people's opinions. So I checked in with like 2 of my friends that have read it, because they saw I was reading it and were like, what did you think? Like, let me know when you finished. And I was like, what the fuck was that? I don't really know what happened. And they both said exactly the same. So it wasn't just me. I thought maybe I just didn't get it, but I'm not in no hurry to reread it. I won't be rereading it. And yeah, I don't like to spend too long slagging off a book. It wasn't for me. I would say if you've read the series, because I've read it, because a couple of people have DM'd me to say that, you can skip the 3rd book. You just don't need to know. I'll tell you what happens. Next up was a audiobook. I forgot to cancel my Kindle subscription again, and it was The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. This memoir gets 4 stars from me. I'm not gonna lie, I don't feel completely comfortable rating memoirs low. It doesn't feel like it's my place. Like, who am I to give a book rating on the events of someone's life, especially when it's quite like traumatizing or harrowing. So I am just going to say, like, any memoirs I read, I don't read a lot of them, but they'll always be kind of like a 4-star for me. It was fairly straightforward writing. I am glad that I got the audiobook because it's only about 200 pages, but the hardback is really expensive, I noticed. It's very much just telling the story. Like, I don't think it's great writing, but who cares? I learned quite a lot because around the time of when Britney was having her like mental health issues and she was shaving her head and it was kind of splashed across tabloids as her downfall, I was maybe like 9, 10, 11, so I didn't really understand. I was just like, oh, Britney's gone crazy. So it's interesting to see it now from an adult perspective of kind of like the smear campaign that was going on against her. I was surprised that the narrator isn't Britney. She explains why at the beginning, because obviously it's just quite traumatic for her to reread and relive these events. She does a brief reading at the beginning, just like a chapter's worth. But the narrator, oh, you wouldn't even notice it's not Britney. I was a bit jarred at first because I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be like as immersed in the story, but the cadence of the way the narrator talks and her tone and just like her speech pattern is so Britney-esque. They did a really, really good job on choosing the narrator. I was really impressed with that. I just thought that was a really clever move from them. And I will say, Justin Timberlake is, I mean, we don't really like him that much anyway, but he is painted badly in this. I thought like, oh my God, if I was Justin and I heard that, I would actually like lose sleep. Overall, I would say this book is worth a read. I probably wouldn't have read it if it wasn't on the audiobook because I quite like listening to memoirs on audiobook. But yeah, I actually read a physical book, can you believe it, from my physical TBR. The next book is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. I've realised I've forgotten to say the genre of the book, but this is a romance. This is also part of a series, the Brown Sisters series. I believe there's 3 books. I read Get a Life Chloe Brown last month, I think. Well, November's month. So this is about Chloe Brown's sister, Danica. So Danica Brown wants academic renown. She wants a successful career and she wants an emotionless fuck buddy. She asks the universe for all of this and she gets delivered Zafir Ansari. This book is a fake dating trope and I'm not gonna lie, I'm just really enjoying the series so far. It's a really nice, light, romantic read. One thing I particularly enjoyed about this book was that our male main character was the hopeless romantic. He was the soft, gooey, kind of considerate one. Not to say that Danica isn't considerate, but he was like the traditionally romantic main character. It was a really nice change and I always think Talia Hibbert, for the 2 books that I've read, writes her characters really well. Both Danica and Zaf are likeable, but Zaf is just like lovable, you know. I really warmed to him and there was quite a nice men's mental health angle as well targeted in this book. It is quite classic and I think it's maybe a bit classic of her writing as well. And especially this is something that features in romance books like all the time. In the last third of the book and a lot of romance books, there's always this kind of like final act dispute that could have been really easily resolved if the characters had just actually had a conversation about what was going on. Like easily resolved, but this one wasn't too dramatic. You know, in some books it's like really devastating and you think like, fuck, should they be together after this? But no, this one was alright. It wasn't enough to make me rate the book any less. I just think it's a bit tired sometimes, but I suppose people prefer that to like a happy ever after. The spice, as always, is really well written in these books. Like they're really spicy. I was quite surprised, considering they're not like a dark romance or like a kinky book by any means. I preferred the spice in this one, but overall I preferred the characters in the first one. I preferred Chloe and Red just a bit more, smidge more. Can recommend. I feel like they're a good holiday read. I'm not buying any more books this year, but I'm gonna try get the 3rd one from the library. My next book was a Kindle book that I bought. It wasn't free. Or was it free? No, I don't think it was free. It was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is a fantasy romance and this gets 5 stars from me. To summarise very, very briefly, these are getting briefer and briefer, but gods are at war. Iris Winow's brother, Forrest, has been sent to the front line and she's devastated. She writes him letters, but her letters to him fall into the wrong hands. They are sent to Roman Kit, who is her rival at her job as a columnist at a newspaper. This is an enemies to lovers fantasy novel and can I just say, devoured. I really liked this book. I felt so immersed, which I think is why I'm rating it as highly as I do. The world building I thought was excellent, and specifically for me it really conjured this kind of like Studio Ghibli-ish whimsical land. Very intricate, delicate, kind of bricky industrialism with magic involved. Kind of similar to Howl's Moving Castle. Iris was low-key giving me Sophie in Howl's Moving Castle. You know, I really hope you know what I'm saying. That was just kind of the world I conjured in my head. Oath, the town where they live. It just seemed very that. There was magic in day-to-day life, but not huge amounts. It was fairly light fantasy elements in the first book. The love letters were so intriguing and I thought so romantic. Like, the art of love letters was captured perfectly. Iris and Roman, I love you. Really excited that I didn't have to wait too long for the sequel because that was out on Boxing Day. I pre-ordered it straight away when I finished. I just thought it was so sweet. It definitely read more as like young adult in some points, but for once that didn't bother me because I'm not like a huge fan of young adult books and I don't really feel like the book needed any spice, to be honest. You know me, I just love a good romance. Next up was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas. This is the Throne of Glass book 4. This for me gets 4.5 stars. Okay, so I would like to say first off the bat, I think I will have to revisit all of my rating for Throne of Glass because I'm not reading them back to back. I keep rating all of them as like 4.5, 5 stars, but it's relative, isn't it? The more you read, the more you can rate them against each other. So I don't think my ratings are that accurate because straight off the bat, I'm kind of like, oh, Queen of Shadows, I kind of want to rate it 5. But I think what I'll do next year is I'll reread the whole series in one go and see where I go from there with the ratings because they can't all, well, they're not to me. I know this straight away. They're not all 4.5 to 5 stars, but I just can't remember because I seem to be reading them in chunks. I haven't formed enough thoughts on them yet as individually as books. It's hard for me to synopsize them as well without completely and utterly spoiling them, but Selena Sardothian returns to the Empire, finally, for vengeance. That's all I can say. Dorian, Aelin and Adrian's fight when she gets him. Oh my god, so cinematic. Lysandra! Exclamation mark. Rowan and Aelin, 3 exclamation marks. Very emotional. Rowan and Aelin's slow burn is starting to piss me off. It's becoming insufferable, not only because I know that this is much less spicy than the ACOTAR series, so I know I won't ever really feel like I got the spice I deserved from it, but I just need something to happen. I'm so sorry if you can hear the Hoover in the background. I'm gonna come back in 10 minutes and wait for that to be done. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not so keen on Chaol. I always feel weird saying Chaol's character development. It feels a bit sloppy and it feels like he's being written so negatively to kind of assert Rowan as the supreme, preferable, more favoured love interest, you know? Because it felt a bit nebulous up until then. We didn't know what was going to happen when they reunited, especially after Aelin's such strong feelings of hatred to him and his yearning for her. I feel like, yeah, this was just a quick out to kind of be like, hey, Rowan, by the way, Rowan's the one. Rowan's it. And in the same vein, I didn't actually feel like we were 100% dead set on Rowan as the love interest until this book. So it felt like a decisive book in terms of romantic plot points. He's kind of annoying now, Chaol that is, and it just feels like a discredit to him and his character. I don't know, I just feel like everyone actually in this book has become 10% more annoying, except for Lysandra and Manon, who are the loves of my life. I love them both dearly, they're perfect, they can do no wrong in my eyes. And I'm very excited to see where their individual stories go. Although I know like Adrian's quite annoying in general, especially in the first half of the book. I don't really want Lysandra and Adrian to get together. If they do, I kind of hope it's like Cassian and Nesta-ish. I would like him to become completely subservient to her. And she's just kind of nonchalant like, oh yeah, I do like him. Next up, I read Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, which is the sequel to Divine Rivals and the final book in the duology. And this was a 3.5 stars for me. 3.75. 3.5 feels a bit mean, but I'm going to say 3.5. Like I said, this is the conclusion to the series. So Iris returns to Oath without Roman, but with the addition of her brother Forrest. In her job as a war journalist, she is given another opportunity to go report on the fighting at the front line, and she decides to go there because it's an opportunity for her to find Roman. This book was a little bit of a drag. That sounds really awful, but I was really looking forward to reading this. I read it on Boxing Day when it came out because I had it pre-ordered. I got the little notification. I think a huge contributor of why I felt like it was a drag was because I was so immersed in Divine Rivals and I was really looking forward to it, and you know, it just doesn't reach your expectations. So that might be a bit of a me thing. I was really excited to read this, but I think despite why I think it's a drag, Rebecca Ross does really manage to maintain that like beautiful world building and that element of whimsical storytelling that like hooked me so much in the first book. Like, it was very visual for me. I could visualize everything perfectly. I think why I didn't like it as much was I found the pacing a bit weird. I didn't feel as connected to the characters this time round. The structure was fairly similar to the first book, so they were just writing each other letters again and getting to know each other again, which felt, I don't want to call it like lazy writing, it just felt like a little bit of a bit repetitive for me. I think I was sad because I wished we were seeing more of Iris and Roman together, like scenes together again, and that felt very limited in this book. There wasn't a lot of that. I would say overall I am really glad that this was a duology. I really enjoyed it generally, and what I didn't like about the second book wouldn't stop me rereading the duology as a whole. I just wasn't as captured by it, but it's like really hard to review, isn't it? Because what do you do when you have such high expectations of a second book? And I think the first book was so good, and the reviews are so good for it. It just didn't capture me as much, but that's okay. My last book of the month was a physical book. I read 2 physical books this month, can you believe it? This was a reread, so I've actually read this before, so I feel like the review will be quite short. But it was Love in Colour by Bolu Babalola. This is a collection of short stories. You know me, I love some short stories, and it is a retelling of like myths and legends about love from around the world. Not just like the classic Greek and Roman myths and legends. A lot of them are African myths and legends, which is just really refreshing to hear myths and legends that I've not heard before. I need to stop saying the word myths and legends. So I rated this 4 stars the first time I read it, which was about 2 years ago, and the 4 stars still stands for me. I felt for the most part, which is often something quite rare in short stories, that all the short stories were very consistent in their quality and how much I enjoyed them. Sometimes I find there's usually a standout couple of short stories and it skews the rating of the book for me, because alongside that there's usually one I really don't like. But I really enjoyed this. The writing is very vivid, very rich. I feel like I can just visualize a lot of the settings that the stories are in. And you know me, I love love. So to see love spoken about in so many different stories is just like my idea of heaven. I feel like my favourite story is the first one because it's a little bit more fantastical. It's based a bit more in that kind of myth aspect. Some of the stories are written kind of like present day, so she tells the story of Eros and Psyche. So they work for like a high fashion magazine called Olympia. Main love interests are called Eros and Psyche, and obviously one of them's older sister is called Venus. Eros's sister is called Venus. But generally I think I prefer the ones that are set maybe a bit more whimsically, a bit more olden timey. The magazine's called Olympus, not Olympia. I'm thinking of something else. Overall, I really enjoyed it again on a reread. I think if you are a fan of short stories, I would really recommend it. I know a lot of people are a bit hit and miss with short stories. Some people really don't like them. I personally love them. I think they're always really delightful, and I always want them to be longer, but that is the nature of short stories. That is all 7 of my reads for the month of December. Let me know what you think, if you've read any of those. Let me know what you finished on for the year as well, if you've been reading or following a target. I'd be really interested to hear. And also just a huge thank you. I feel like I'm constantly thanking you all in my videos lately, but generally that's because I feel thankful. So a big thank you to everyone that has watched all my reading wrap-up videos this year. I know not everyone's here for books, so it means the world to me, the people that do watch. And as always, I love hearing all your book suggestions for me. I'm really looking forward to doing my January reading wrap-up because I'll be going away, so I'm sure I'll devour a lot of Kindle books. I should have a 2023 reading wrapped video coming to you soon. My upload schedule at the moment is Sundays and Wednesdays, 6 p.m. As you know, it's been a little bit hit and miss just because I've been a bit unwell, and then I had my birthday and all that kind of stuff. So I will be doing an updated schedule on my, like, I'll do a little post on YouTube, you know, you can do like a text post just updating you all over the next coming weeks. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for watching and welcome back. If you're a new viewer and you liked my content, it would really mean the world to me if you dropped a little like, a comment or a subscribe, all of that kind of good stuff. I've popped a link to my Storygraph in the description box because I know a lot of people are actually moving over to Storygraph instead of Goodreads. So if you're on there, please do add me as a friend because I love seeing what everyone reads. And I have made a 2024 books story highlight on Instagram, so that's where I'll be keeping track of all my books this year. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you on the next video. Goodbye.